He didn't know it yet, but the moment that would change his entire life began with the sound of a ceiling fan making a hopeless, dying rattle above his head. David Carter stared at it from the floor of his cramped one-room apartment, wondering whether it would fall first or whether his startup would. Bills lay scattered like battlefield casualties around him. His bank app showed $312.49. His landlord had given him one final warning. Investors had ghosted him. And worst of all, his co-founder, the one person he trusted most, had quit the night before. "Face it, man," his co-founder had said as he slammed the door behind him. "This thing is never gonna work." But the human heart is strange. Sometimes, the darker everything becomes, the louder ambition grows. David sat up, wiped his face, and whispered the one sentence he'd heard 1,000 times in 1,000 entrepreneur books. Rock bottom is where the solid foundation begins. He didn't want to hear that. He wanted success. He wanted results. But life wasn't giving him what he wanted. So he did the only thing he could. He opened his laptop. The screen flickered as it struggled to function, maybe just as tired as he was. And there, amidst the chaos, a thought surfaced, sharp and sudden like lightning. What if the problem wasn't the product, but the assumption behind the product? He thought back to Eric Ries's words from the Lean Startup. Build something people want, not something you want them to want. His startup had been a project management tool that no one asked for. Not one user had said, "I need this." He had fallen in love with the solution, not the problem. So he decided to flip the equation. He picked up a notebook, the same notebook where he had scribbled 100 failed ideas, and wrote one question in bold ink. What is the single biggest pain people deal with every day that nobody is solving? He stared at it, and stared, and stared. Then something clicked. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't magical, it wasn't even impressive. It was simple. He remembered watching a friend, an incredibly talented graphic designer, spend hours searching through old messages just to find a single client's past instruction. She'd said something like, "I wish there was a place where all my client notes, files, messages, and feedback stayed organized automatically. I waste half my day just looking for things." One frustrated sentence from one frustrated user. That became the moment. David whispered, "What if software could manage the chaos instead of expecting people to manage the software?" He didn't sleep that night. He drew wireframes. He built a prototype using leftover code from his old project. He ran user interviews, applying lessons from 0 to 1, listening not for what users said, but for the deeper problem beneath their words. And then he created a tiny, rough, ugly version of the product that would become his empire, FlowSync, a platform that automatically organized all client communications, files, messages, decisions, and feedback using AI. No dashboards, no confusing menus, just clarity. By dawn, he posted it in a small online community for freelancers. He expected nothing, but by lunch, 27 people had signed up. By dinner, 91. By next morning, 246 users had created accounts, more users than his previous startup had gathered in 18 months. Still, David didn't celebrate. He remembered something Naval Ravikant said, "Play long-term games with long-term people." He was building something bigger than quick wins. He called every user personally, some at midnight, some at 4 a.m. He asked them what they loved, what they hated, what made them want to scream. Instead of defending the product, he studied the criticism as if it were treasure. Each tiny improvement added another atom of value. Like Atomic Habits taught, small changes compound into massive results. In 2 weeks, FlowSync was not just an app, it was becoming a movement. But then came the email that shook him. "Your tool saved me 7 hours this week. I'm definitely willing to pay for it." Pay? Someone wanted to pay? David had been so focused on survival that he forgot to think about money. But he quickly created a $9 per month plan. Within the first hour, 3 people subscribed. The next hour, 5 more. By the end of the day, 23 subscribers. It was the first money he had earned from something he built with pure desperation and hope. His eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of proof. He worked from sunrise to sunrise for the next 40 days, driven not by motivation, but by obsession. He remembered Steve Jobs' words, "You have to be insane enough to think you can change the world." And maybe he was insane. He ate ramen for every meal. He slept 3 hours a night. But FlowSync grew from a clumsy newborn into a sharp, intuitive, almost magical tool. Word spread like fire. A popular YouTuber discovered it. A freelance community recommended it. A productivity blogger wrote an article titled, "This one tool fixes my entire workflow." Within 3 months, 10,000 users. But success brings new problems. His servers started crashing. Emails piled up. Bugs multiplied. Competition noticed. He needed a team. But he had no money to hire. Yet he remembered a principle from Think and Grow Rich. When you lack resources, become resourceful. So he did something bold. He reached out to the very users who criticized him the hardest, because in their frustration, he saw passion. He asked them to join him, not for salaries, but for equity. To his shock, 3 said yes. A back-end genius from Brazil, a designer from Manila, a marketer from Texas. They weren't employees, they were believers. FlowSync 2.0 was their combined heartbeat. The product became smoother, smarter, faster. It could track client demands, auto-file documents, predict bottlenecks, and create summaries with a single click. It felt like a digital assistant, one that never slept. That's when the investors came knocking at David's door, the same ones who once rejected him. But this time, he rejected them. He remembered the biggest lesson from the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. You want wealth, not money. Wealth is assets that earn while you sleep. He didn't want to sell early. He didn't want to lose control. He wanted legacy. He wanted empire. So he scaled carefully, thoughtfully, relentlessly. 6 months passed. FlowSync reached 75,000 active users and $420,000 in annual recurring revenue. David moved into a real office, a small one, yes, but with bright windows and strong Wi-Fi, which already made it feel like luxury. The team grew to 12. A year passed. FlowSync hit 200,000 users. Companies adopted it. Agencies used it. Startups depended on it. It appeared in Forbes, Wired, Entrepreneur magazine. David was invited to podcasts, conferences, interviews. But he always said the same thing. "I'm not here to be famous. I'm here to solve problems." And he meant it. On the anniversary of launching FlowSync, he went back to the same notebook where he had written the question that started everything, and he added one more line beneath it. One idea is all it takes if you have the courage to chase it until it becomes real. 2 years later, FlowSync didn't just become a successful startup, it became an empire. A global tool used by millions, a benchmark in the productivity world. A symbol of what happens when rock bottom meets relentless hunger. Investors now begged to buy it for hundreds of millions, but David didn't sell. He remembered the pain of that dark apartment, that dying ceiling fan, that $312 in his bank account. He didn't fight for wealth, he fought for meaning. And perhaps that's why FlowSync became unstoppable. Not because of brilliant code, not because of a perfect business plan, but because of a simple idea born out of desperation, shaped by feedback, fueled by obsession, and sharpened by every lesson he'd ever learned from the world's greatest entrepreneurs. One night, long after he had become David Carter, founder of a global empire, he returned to the old apartment building. The ceiling fan was gone, the walls were repainted. Someone else lived there now. But David didn't need the room to remind him of where he came from. He carried it inside him. That tiny space of fear and hope had become the birthplace of the idea that changed his life. And as he walked away, he whispered into the night, "Never underestimate what one idea can do when you refuse to quit." If this story moved you, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe to the Narration House and turn on the bell, because every week we bring you stories that ignite ambition, challenge limits, and remind you what's possible.